are. So part 2 of this. So we've got the eye shape, we've got some lashes built out. I just did this inner eye section, and then when we zoom out and we kind of do a little comparison, it does look a little bit heavy in comparison to this one. So that's where we kind of go and make our adjustments to kind of work with our actual illustration. So sometimes it might not be a direct replica of our image versus, you know, using it as a loose base or a pretty solid base, actually, I should say, and then making your adjustments to work. So again, there's probably some little curve things that I would go in and adjust, but I'll just leave them as is for now. So what I'm going to do is start building out these bottom lashes. So again, I'm in just that top eye layer, and I'm going to just flip that back on. And again, really quick, just kind of go ahead and build those out. So you can do as much or as little here, depends on, you know, how you want your image to appear. Do you want it to have really long wispy lashes? Are you looking for maybe not so much? So as you can see in my illustration, or sorry, in my photo, my lashes don't exactly follow along where my lines are, but again, we'll just use those as somewhat as our base to work off of. Just doing your best to just, you know, not take a ton of time to do those. Whoops. Building them out. And you don't need to, I don't think you need to spend too much time adjusting your curves here. Again, we're just building a few lashes. Some of them I like to add that little bit of curve to it. So like this on this side here, I ended up not really focusing too much on that when I originally did the one side, and then I went in and added a few more on after the end. I'm just going to go ahead and fill those in so I get a better visual. And I'll just go ahead and add a few more. All right, so I'm just going to do one more here, and then we can just kind of call this little section done. And then we can also, it's always nice to turn our layers back on and see where things are at and see how things are looking. Once we get to a certain stage, it's kind of a bit daunting once you're looking at it like this. Things look weird, and then when you start to turn your layers on, things start to come to life. So again, this side probably has a few more than this side. They're a bit heavy in their weight. I do like the thickness of the ones over on the left side, so I'll go in and make the adjustment to these guys. But I won't spend, again, like I've said a few times, I won't spend too much more time getting into these little details, as those are all of our refined things that we end up going in probably either at the end or before we get too far into another section. So now adding a little bit of an offset color for this inner eye duct here, that little inner lid. And again, we can just loosely illustrate that, and then we can send it to back. So since we have our curves all set up, using those as our guide. And personally, I'm okay with the fact that that these little pieces don't fully meet that edge. Will meet in the end. But again, it's totally up to you guys. It's your illustration. I do want you to somewhat adapt your own style if you're able to. Just pick up that color, Command Shift, square bracket, send it to back. And again, turn that back on off and see how things look. So I think those look okay in comparison side by side. Again, those bottom lashes are kind of frustrating me a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about them right now. So where we're going to go now is working on that actual inner eye. So this is where we get into some fun details. So again, I did create another layer here for the inner section of the eye versus the outside. So I'm just going to go ahead and lock that top layer so I don't end up touching anything else. And I'm actually just going to start with our ellipse, working with the circle tool, and just going about above beyond our actual eye. So this is where I can go ahead and I can use my photo to eyedrop. If you happen to do a live trace, you can use that. Since I selected my colors over here, I'm just going to pick it straight up from this side. Bring it on over here so I can actually get a good copy of that. And again, I do actually find when I can slide it over, I get a better, it makes it a little bit easier to look back and forth. So I'm just going to add a little pupil in there. So now we can go ahead and start adding in some of these little shadows. So I've gone in and added a few layers in the eyes. So I kind of have this darker area, then I have a bit of a highlight area, and then I do have an intersection that's ever so slightly different than my actual base color. So I have quite a few layers that I built up in there, not too many, so you don't need to go too far in this. And this is kind of a loose base shape based on this, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the same. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it in, and I'm going to go ahead and just pick up that color and then bring that in a little bit. Again, you guys are welcome to build out your eyes as you see fit, but these are all just some suggestions. So I'm just going to look over at this actual eye now and see where I see a bit of a highlight and then some shadows. So I see some shadowing up here. So I'm actually going to go back onto my actual eye section. And keeping note, there will be that pupil in there, so you don't need to really worry about the shape there. And I actually almost find the looser you are with the shapes, the more realistic they end up looking versus focusing so much on kind of really making them exact. And I'm going to go and build that highlight. So I find all that highlight's coming up a little bit higher in here. And back up into here. Again, really loosely built, so probably some adjustments will need to be made once I get the actual eye in there. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to bring that pupil to the front and then grab that whole eye, place it in there, and then see how things are looking. So in comparison to that, I think we could probably use a few adjustments. This little highlight section is probably going out a bit too far, so bringing that in a little bit. But at this stage, there's kind of not really a right and wrong. I think, you wouldn't be able to take exactly what I'm doing and apply it directly to yours because your highlights are going to be sitting in different areas and different sections. So it's just kind of trusting your own abilities, using your own color tones and placements and seeing where you see things fit. So if we turn this back on, we can see that this little bottom area gets cut out, so I'm not going to bother worrying about it, and same with that little top upper area. So I'm not going to bother worrying about that. And then just going to look back at this. So I kind of like the way this kind of slims out on here, and I find it a bit heavy on this one, on the side. So I'm actually going to adjust it again. As you can see, these are all really loose workings with the pen tool. So I'm actually just going to leave that as is. I'm going to flip those eyes back on so I can see the outer portion of the eye, and I'm just going to go ahead and adjust my actual eye shape. So I'm going to use my pen tool with the plus. I'm going to just add a couple extra nodes right behind where those lashes are. So this way when I go ahead and I grab this little piece, it doesn't take the rest of it with you. Bring it in, and that's where we can grab all these little bits and pieces, and probably won't need to focus too much on their shape since we are loosely building these out. Now at this stage we can kind of zoom out, see how that's looking. So far I think it looks okay. Certainly missing the highlight, missing the white part for some realism. So let's go add that inner white part of our eyes. And again, because this is sitting on the furthest layer in our eye, we don't really need to worry too much about the shapes. Since I'm going in behind here, I can just kind of really loosely build that out. And then I'm going to go ahead and eye drop it over here and send to back. Oops. And see how we're looking. So it's looking pretty good now. So now we're adding a little more realism, and we're just going to add a couple little highlights. So I'm actually just going to take this exact little highlight. Make sure you know what I'm doing directly. Oops. Not sure what I was doing there. Indirectly, oopsies, place those in. This is where you can decide. You can use your photo to figure out where those highlights might be, or perhaps it might just be a nice quick adjustment from, or take placement from our last one. So last but not least, I did add an extra little highlight here and also a few little wisps in the eye, so you're welcome to go ahead and do that if you'd like as well. Again, you can decide where your highlights are. You can maybe place that in the same spot, see how it looks. I'm not going to go ahead and add those little inner pieces at this time because I think you guys get the gist of it. They're just little bits and pieces as we use in here. So once we zoom out, we can see that we do have now 2 real eyes. Another thing, sorry, that does help with a little bit of realism before I do shut this one out, adding that little arch in the eye makes it so that eye is not just quite plunked on the face there. So I would probably go in and add a few more details. So adding it in here, maybe another little crease in there. But you could see the difference between those two and how that kind of changes this side to this side. All right, we'll work out the other version now.